Hello, this is Catherine, and I know I need to stop talking. Hello, lovelies. How's everybody doing? It's Saturday or a different day of the week, depending on which day of the week you're listening to this. I must remember that not everybody listens to the podcast on the day that I record it. I hope everybody's well. I feel like I need to do apologies in advance. I don't know about anybody else, but when I listen to I was going to pretend that I listened to podcasts just then, and as long-standing listeners will know, I can't listen to podcasts because I am so lacking in concentration that I am literally incapable of taking anything through the spoken word. So I don't listen to podcasts, but if I did, I kind of imagine like proper podcasters in this proper recording studio with like some soundproofing and really focused. And it's just so far removed from my little setup here. So let me describe it for you. So I am recording sitting at my desk, which sits in a little room. Now we haven't got a name for this little room, so maybe you can all help. So we had the garage converted when we moved into this house a few years ago. So basically, off my kitchen is a room that used to be a garage, and now it isn't. I mean, that's a catchy name, isn't it? Used to be a garage, and now it isn't. And it's got my desk in it. It's got a sofa in it and a television, and it's got the world's largest drinks cabinet in the form of a telephone box filled with alcohol, which genuinely is as cool as it sounds. And we haven't managed to come up with a name for it because Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking is very keen to call it the Snug, and I just think we sound like wankers if we call a room snug, because yeah, I feel like if you're going to have a snug, you've probably got about 3,000 acres and at least 7 butlers, and we have none of those things. I mean, it's hard enough to get the kids to bring you a fucking cup of tea. So I'm in this room that has no name. If you've got any ideas as to what we should call it, I'm all ears. But for the moment, it is kind of just known as that room. We're kind of like, can you go and get the thing from that room? What room? You know, that room, which is kind of not massively working. So we do need to name it. But yeah, so I'm sat in here at my desk. So far, so good, right? And you'd be right. So far, so good, with my laptop and with my microphone. And then I've got every fucking kitchen appliance going. And again, I mean, literally, as I said that, I don't know whether it will pick it up on the microphone and maybe it won't. My washing machine is such a dick. I mean, many household appliances are dicks, but my washing machine is right up there. I've got like work colleagues and they describe their washing machines as silent. And that is so far removed from my experience with washing machines, I cannot even begin to tell you. So if you can't hear it yet, you almost certainly will, because it gets onto like the fast spin cycle, and I could only describe it sounding like it's got a brick in there, and I know that washing machines do have a brick in there, but I feel like my washing machine may have more than one brick. It's like going around at the rate of knots. So that's kicking off. Then we happen to have not one but 2 fridges. Long tedious story behind it, but we basically have 2 fridges. One of the fridges is really nice. It's really nice. We keep drinks in it. It's a really nice fridge. You open it, you put the drinks in. If you accidentally leave the door open too long, it just does a gentle ding ding, like to nicely remind you. It's quiet, it's convenient. I'm a big fan of the fridge. The other fridge is an absolute fucking dick. It's firstly has the tendency, so when you leave the door open by accident, there's no polite ding ding ding. It sounds like a fucking air raid siren. I mean, I don't know who invented the alarm. I don't know who thought, right, fridge alarms, if the doors are open, no, what are we going for, a gentle ding? Or we could go for something that sounds like we're in the middle of the Blitz, because that is what my fridge sounds like. It's the most aggressive arsehole of a fridge ever. And as if that wasn't bad enough, when it hasn't got its door open and you're like, it's just sitting there, it's just doing its fridge thing, you'd think, okay, well, surely then it doesn't make a noise. No, it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds a bit like a tractor. Probably suggests it's not working, isn't it? Because I don't think fridges should sound like tractors. So in hindsight, I probably need to get looked at. But yeah, anyway, so in the background everywhere is an absolute fucking cacophony of abject chaos. On top of that, I usually turn my mobile off for these recordings, but today Jamie is out with his friends and I am so ill-equipped to deal with this stage of parenting. I cannot tell you. Like, obviously, you're brought up, like when you first have kids, to know that you must keep them safe and by your side at all points, right? It's kind of basic rule of parenting 101. Have baby, keep baby with you so it's safe, right? That's like a really easy instruction. So for the last 13 years, that's what I've drilled into myself. And then there comes this time, and none of the books warn you that this shit is coming. You feel like there needs to be some kind of like gradual transition program. I mean, I need a fucking vodka and a lie down in a darkened room, but there should be at least a transition program when your children, who previously were by your side 24/7, go and do stuff by themselves. And I just can't cope. I'm the ultimate helicopter parent. Is that the term, helicopter parent? I feel like I've made that up now. I certainly haven't got a helicopter, but that thing where you're kind of like, I am so bad at letting go. Like, I've got friends who like have relished the days that their kids have kind of like, you know, done some more stuff independently, got the bus by themselves, headed off by themselves. I am like, my babies, you must be with me forever. And Jamie's like, look at me in a weird way. And I'm like, I'll give you a lift, darling, I'll give you a lift. He's like, I can just get the train. A train? But all kinds of people might be on the train and they might come near you. And Jamie's like, well, then I'd just walk away from them. I mean, obviously he's very rational and sensible, and I am neither rational nor sensible, and probably in need of a bit of a slap around the face to get over myself. But it's terrifying. If you're not at this stage yet, it's absolutely terrifying. And of course, if you're me, your brain just starts to spiral as to what might be going on. Probably, let's be honest, in part guided by all of our own teenage years, when certainly I shudder to think of my son going up to some of the things that I got up to. And if my parents are listening, absolutely have just made that up for the podcast, and you have nothing to worry about whatsoever. But yeah, I kind of, you know, your mind spirals as to all the things I might do. So when he first did this a few weeks ago, he went to meet up with his friends. I was like, what will you do, darling? Where will you go? And he's like, I don't know, we're just going in the park or something. What if strange men come up to you in the park? Mum, I'll be fine. And so he went off, and I like nervously sat at home. I mean, obviously the big advantage these days that we've got over our parents' generation is fucking technology's a treat, isn't it? You can track your kids. As I have confessed on here before, my peak moment of parenting madness was when I found myself genuinely Googling to see if it was possible to fit children with microchips like you could cats. I wasn't like doing it in a sarcastic way. I genuinely thought that'd be brilliant because then I could track their microchip. If you're also looking for the same, spoiler alert, you cannot, because apparently that's some kind of breach of human rights. Who knew? Who knew? So I was kind of nervously tracking him the whole time, and then he got back, and I was like, oh, my baby, you're home, my baby, my baby. And he's like, oh yeah, shut up, get off, you're weird. And I said, what did you do? And I was kind of like thinking, oh my God, do I want to know the answer to this? And then he looked at me and he's like, oh, I'm not sure you're going to like it. And I'm thinking, shit, drink, drugs? Did they go and like get in a fight? I'm like, Jamie, you have to tell me, darling, you have to tell me. What did you do? What did you do? He went, oh, it's brilliant. And I was like, oh no, again, thinking about the kind of stuff that I thought that was brilliant when I was his age. I said, come on, I promise I won't be angry. He said, we did something that I've always wanted to do all of my life. He said, we went to the co-op, and when we were in the co-op, we bought every single type of donut that there was. And then we went to the park and we ate them. And I'm going to be honest, if that's the level of teenage bad behaviour that he reaches, if that's the greatest heights, I am so on board with that. Alas, I fear, harking back to my own teenage years, that probably won't be the case. But it's a cliche, it's often said, they grow up so fast, but they do. They really fucking do. Beth went off yesterday evening, Friday night. She had a party around a friend's house, and so she's getting ready, and much like my generation and probably generations beforehand, like there's no way you could get ready by yourself, even if you were by yourself. Back in the day, it was rubbish. You had to like get onto the landline, and you had to try and make sure that you were on the landline before your sibling was on the landline. And as everybody of that era knows, if you got to 59 minutes on the call, you had to hang up and call back to avoid call charges under BT Family and Friends scheme. Yes, I remember those days. Of course, these days, they've got bloody FaceTime, haven't they? So they're literally there like Beth and her bestie going, I might wear this. Do you think I should wear this? What do you think? Oh, we're going to try these shoes. Maybe I'll do these shoes. And honestly, they just seemed so grown up, and they're just kind of like, all like taking care of their hair, and some of them are doing their makeup and things, and they're chatting about boys, and you're like, what the fuck, a minute ago you were like shitting in the middle of the living room, and now look at you, you're old and grown up. And I'm sure this is a revelation that every parent has, but it's kind of like just hit me now. She was like, and then she also knows that I'm a bit of a helicopter parent, so she got picked up by a friend's mum. She got in the car, she messaged me, on my way home, mum, you don't need to worry. And you don't want, as a parent, you don't want your child to like, you know, sort of be thinking about you worrying. But I'm really, really shit at being sanguine on just about any area of my life. So yeah, I'll totes be stalking Jamie until he gets home later on his little tracking device. And then let's hope any bad behaviour this afternoon is limited as far as eating all the donuts. I think I can probably just about live with that. But I remember, like the weird thing, of course, you see your kids go through this. I remember my dad used to like drive out on like a Friday night once me and my sister had gone out to go and check on us and make sure we were behaving as teenagers, which we almost certainly weren't. I think our saving grace was that we probably both hung around with sets of friends who were far more badly behaved than us. one of my favourite stories with my dad when me and my sister were teenagers was he had driven out on a Friday night, and my sister Helen, who I think probably she was definitely and still is a lot more stylish and fashionable than I have or will ever be, and therefore has probably always pushed the boundaries on clothing much more than I was ever capable of doing, had come downstairs dressed in a skirt that my dad, in the time-old tradition of all dads everywhere, described as being not a skirt but a belt. And again, in time-old tradition, my dad said, "You're not going out the house wearing that," and so she stopped and said, "Oh, you're so unreasonable, I hate you, I'm leaving home," etc. Again, as standard teenagers do. But dutifully went upstairs and got changed and went out. So my dad describes how he then later that evening drove through our nearby town just to make sure all was well, and drove past a bus stop because, were you even a teenager if you didn't hang out in a bus stop? There should be more pubs called the bus stop. I think that would be a nice little segue for us all from teenage to adult years. Anyway, my dad drove past the actual bus stop and found my sister standing there with her mates, dressed in the very same belt skirt, because she's not stupid, my sister. She'd taken off that skirt, put in her bag, gone to her mate's house where she was staying the night, gone and got changed, and obviously other people's parents were always cooler, right? Even if they weren't, they always seemed cooler, and had then gone down the bus stop in her belt skirt. So I think much to her distaste when my dad rocked up on a Friday night, because there is nothing less cool as a teenager than your dad rocking up when you're out with your mates on a Friday night and going, "Get that skirt off and put something more suitable on." So yeah, poor Helen. I can already sense that I'll be doing that now. Both my children, I'm sure, are more than capable of wearing belt skirts when they shouldn't be. It's been a mental week. It's been really busy, and I kind of acknowledged and alluded to that on the blog itself. And I'm sorry that I haven't done a huge amount of posting this week. It's just been bonkers. There's a lot going on. Obviously, did manage to share the news of the last week's period podcast, which, God love you all for loving that period podcast as much as I loved recording it. We love a good chat about period clots, and from your response, it seems that you did too. I mean, I sit here in my chaotic house with my aggressive fridge like a absolutely non-professional podcaster, and I can't fucking believe anybody would listen to this shit. And yet enough of you do that this little podcast hit the Apple top 10 parenting podcasts. What the actual fuck? Next to names of people, and I'm shit with famous people, names of people I'd actually heard of. Sophie Ellis-Bextor, a real famous person, and Stacey Solomon, also a real famous person, and me, talking about shit. Well, not shit, talking about clots, period clots. And maybe Sophie and Stacey were covering period clots as well, in which case, girls, we should collab, right? Is that the phrase? Oh, God, I'm cringing really hard at my attempt to sound cool there with my use of collab rather than collaboration. I know few things to be true in life, but one thing I know to be absolutely without a doubt true: I will never be cool. Lots of comments off the back of the period post asking me to write one on the menopause, and I feel like this is something one should have lived experience of. So while I'm not quite there yet, I can absolutely assure you the moment perimenopause symptoms come calling, I will be fucking there, spades and warts and all. There's a combination of items. I think I may have mixed my metaphors there, but I will have spades and I probably will have warts, because I suspect that's probably what the menopause does for you, because goodness me, isn't it a joy being a woman. I was reminded, oh my goodness, this week of one of my worst, I don't quite know how to describe this one. Certainly one of my more memorable moments of being a woman, which came back in, 10 years ago, right? So 10 years ago, I had a copper coil fitted for the very first time. This is definitely a TMI story before I go any further. However, I'm assuming that if you listened to the period podcast last week and you're still here, probably we're well into the realms of TMI, so I assume we're good. Anyway, so I had a coil fitted, and then they obviously tell you when you had a coil fitted to check the coil string, so I had dutifully done that. And then I was having a shower one morning, and as I was having a shower, I reached down to wash between my legs and pulled out what I can only describe as looking like a coil string. And I went, fuck, where's that come from? I mean, I made the working assumption that it was a coil, either that or I was running some kind of haberdashery in my front bottom, which didn't seem to be the case. So I went and told Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking, who kind of shook his head in despair and was like, well, you better check with your doctor, better safe than sorry, right? So I was like, yep, so dutifully made an appointment. And I had got the coil string, or certainly the thing that I'd assumed to be a coil string, And it was kind of like, it was sort of, the reason I thought it was coil string is it was white, like the coil strings were, and then the end of it was kind of like ever so slightly red, so I assumed maybe from a bit of blood type thing. I don't know, I assumed that was what it was. So I had taken it and I had put it so I could show my GP. God, what a treat. GPs, you're amazing. I'm so sorry. Some of the shit you must have to see, and this was probably up there. I'd put it into, I had like a little plastic container. So I put it in the plastic container, made a doctor's appointment. Went along a week or so later to see my GP, lovely, lovely lady, and she said, why are you here to see me? And I said, I had a coil fitted, everything's been fine, but in the shower, found this, just wanted to check. And mate, honestly, this is so mortifying. As I'm reliving it now, I'm like, God, this story, this is just terrible. But it's the kind of thing that, you know, obviously I will share with anybody listening to this podcast, because maybe you too can learn and not make the same mistakes. So I said to her, I've brought it with me, so you can check. She said, oh no, you're quite right to come in. We should definitely check, make sure everything's okay. She said, can I have a look? So I took out my plastic pot, opened it up, and I showed her the piece of coil string. So she had a really good look. She said, she said, it doesn't look like a coil string. She said, but you know, you're right to bring it in. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't look like anything. I've never seen anything like it before. It's really, really strange. So she examined me. She was like, no, you're all absolutely fine. Coil's there, safe and sound. All the strings are there. It's all good. I was like, how weird. That's really weird. And I went home and I would have forgotten about it. But that evening, I sat down to watch television in our living room. And we had a hardwood floor at the time, and on the floor we had a new rug. The new rug was many different colours and shades, including both white and red. And as I sat there and went over towards the rug, I realised to my abject horror what had happened. So basically, the night before I'd made this discovery, with Jamie at that time asleep in bed and Beth asleep in bed, Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking, it was like Friday night, we were in the living room, and we may have made the most of having some uninterrupted space in the house without the children present to do what married couples occasionally do. And thus it was, I had gone to see my doctor with a strand from my fucking rug that had become detached during sex and attached itself to my nether regions, and I had become convinced it was my coil string. And oh my God, it's like the most embarrassing story of my life. So of course I share it with all of you, because if I make these mistakes, the very least I can hope for is that all of you don't have to make it too. So there we go. That's good. We can never make eye contact if I see any of you in public, but at least I've unburdened myself. And to my GP, I'm so sorry. I feel really glad that you don't know the true origin of that coil string. And if you ever listen to this podcast, I'm probably just going to have to change GPs, right? It was genuinely mortifying. So good. I don't even know how I've ended up telling you that story, but such is the way of these podcasts. In less mortifying podcast blog related news, this morning's blog post for anybody who's seen it, I feel very cross. I do feel very cross. Now, I am not a fan of this government. I've probably made this clear very many times before, but I also think that managing any country through a pandemic is probably not easy. So I do try and be patient and rational. But what the fuck? So for anybody who didn't see my rant, well, Mrs. May's rant, but Mrs. May and I are very much on the same page when it comes to this. I love football so much. I love football. I love the Euros. I love watching competitor games, friendly games, local games, big international matches. I love it all. But, I cannot fathom how it is okay for the government to be prioritising tens of thousands of fans getting together in stadiums to watch the Euros, where on the other side of the coin, you've got schools, and God love you, everybody who works in schools, teachers, TAs, site staff, school staff, you are amazing. But you've got schools in, wow, chaos sounds unfair because it sounds like it's the fault of the people working in them, and it absolutely isn't. But you've got hundreds of thousands of kids isolating because this fucking government has refused to put any kind of money into making schools safe. They just keep repeating the fucking mantra, schools are safe. But how can schools be safe when hundreds of thousands of kids are isolating? It's bullshit, and it makes me so cross. And it's also really fucking hard to explain to kids, isn't it, when they're like watching the football. Like Beth the other night was watching a game, and to be fair, I don't think it was played over here. She's like, wow, there's loads of people there. She's like, but you can't come to my sports day. And you're right. And it's like, it's completely fucking illogical. And like I say this from a position of love because I love football. But I just think school staff and students and kids are getting such a shitty deal. So yeah, I was very fucked off, as was Mrs. May. So she wrote a blog post about her fucked offness. And as always, there is some small comfort in unity of everybody coming back and saying, yes, we feel exactly the same way. So I don't know how to change this. I sometimes feel really powerless and feel like we should be capable of more, but it's just such an absolute clusterfuck. And just fucking hell, government, fucking invest in schools, invest in these poor people who've been working on the front line of education you've given fuck all to, not even any fucking PPE, because you seem to think that a wet paper towel is fit for fucking purpose. Makes me livid. Anyway, that's that particular rant over. But yeah, I am definitely quite livid about it. Obviously, Euros though, and you know, away from my lividness, I am loving the Euros and watching from home on my television set, because one can watch Harry Kane fail to score goals just as well from home as one can in the stadium. Euro 96 though. Euro 96. That was the year that I first got properly into football, so I was 15, and me and my friendship group, all girls, we were so into it. I could have told you stats on pretty much any team in the tournament. There was like that obsession that you can get into when you're a teenager. And of course, England versus Germany this week on Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking's birthday. So I'm kind of trying to do the positive thing and be like, oh, won't that be really nice to watch that on your birthday? And he's giving me this look like, have you forgotten Euro 96? And oh my goodness me, that heartbreak. Oh, that heartbreak when Gaza missed what should have been the winning goal, and then Southgate failed to score his penalty. So I'm complete believer in fate. I'm like, yes, this is an opportunity to avenge those demons. Or more likely we could lose yet another fucking penalty shootout. And yeah, maybe I should go and volunteer. Be like, I think it was the World Cup a few years ago. Beth was smaller and England were taking penalties. I think it was over in Russia. And Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking and I was speculating over who was going to take the penalties. And I think a couple of players had taken them and then somebody missed. And Beth looked at me really dead serious, and she could only have been 6 or 7, I think, at the time. And she said to me, do you think they're going to need me to take one? She said, because I can go and get my kit and my studs on really quickly if you can get me to Russia. And it was just said with this totally deadpan. And I thought, to be honest, love, you probably have just as good a chance of any of those England players out there. But yeah, so we'll see what Tuesday has to hold. And if you're not a football fan, I'm sorry for banging on, and I will shut up about the beautiful game now. But I'm just saying, we were robbed. Euro 96, we were robbed. Although my kitchen appliances are being dicks, we do at least have no Ocado to interrupt us this week. I know, right? So in a break from tradition, because I had to take Beth out to this party last night, I said to Jamie, oh, let's go crazy, Jamie, with our Friday night. He went, what are we going to do? I said, let's do a Tesco click and collect. And he's Jamie, he's such a good boy, He was like, yeah, all right, we'll do Tesco click and collect. So we dropped Beth off last night, and Jamie and I went to do a Tesco click and collect. Now, I have done Tesco click and collects before, but usually it's for, like, well, some of you will remember earlier this year when it was my wedding anniversary, and so my gift to myself and Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking, but mainly me, was to go and buy a case of Veuve Clicquot from Tesco when they did their 25% off deal. So I've done click and collects before, but I had not done one which was like a full food shop. I mean, fucking hell, it's a bit much, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, it felt a little bit like a cross between the Olympics and an episode of the Generation Game, because they come out, they're all very lovely, the Tesco staff, and they come out with their crates. And I had clocked that I needed to bring bags, so I brought, no surprise, I brought all the Ocado bags that I still failed to fucking fold and give back. So I said to Jamie, right, get the bags out. But then in our click and collect, you've like got a 2-bay thing, so we were in the front bay and there was a car behind us. They'd obviously done this shit before. This was not their first rodeo. So they're like out in like precision format. Like, he goes there, she goes there, lift and up and in and out and round and done. And me and Jamie are like flailing, like dropping stuff all over the place. And I'm like, Jamie, come on, get your shit together. And we're like throwing stuff into the car, and then they're finished in the car behind you, and then the pressure is on, and you're like, shit, I've still got so much to get into the car. Then the boot gets full, you're like, right, get into the back. And by the end of it, I'd gone from at the start, I was like, right, come on, Jamie, we must have a system. By the end of it, I was like, who fucking cares? Just throw it in the back of the car. Just get it in. It doesn't matter. Get it all in the car. Jamie, to his credit, very zen, very chilled, got it all in the back of the car. Discovered his secret, unsung hidden talent for putting wine bottles, because another 25% deal on wine. So for anybody who wants that intel, there's my little tip for you all this weekend. So putting bottles of wine into the back of the car onto the floor, stacking them miraculously together so they made not a sound as we drove home. It was remarkable. I said, gosh, I feel like there should be some kind of event or competition that you could enter for this. It's a genuine skill that you've got there, son, and there speaks an overly proud parent, right? So yeah, it was definitely more stressful than my usual Ocado experience, but I feel like I feel like I should have timed us. I feel like we could go back and try and beat PB. My goodness, maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should time ourselves on Tesco Click and Collect, see if we can beat our time. I'm quite competitive. I might actually do that. I'm not even joking. I can see Jamie getting quite into that. We know how to live, right? Don't try and tell me about wild Friday nights. We've gone from standing in the bus stop wearing skirts that look like belts to down the Tesco Click and Collect trying to beat our PB. I am living the dream. It's traumatised the kids though. It's traumatised Beth. She came out into the bathroom this morning when I was in the bath, because there is never a time like when your children want your attention, like the moment when you're trying to either have a poo or a bath. So she came waltzing into the bathroom this morning when I was in the bath and went in dramatic Lady Macbeth-esque tones, "There is nothing to eat." I said, "What do you mean there's nothing to eat?" She said, "When's Ocado coming?" I said, "Ocado aren't coming. Jamie and I did Tesco last night." And her face, she looked livid. She was like, "Well, what am I supposed to eat?" And I said, "Beth, we got a full supermarket shop last night." And she went, "I've been in the fridge," she said, "and all that's in that fridge is a pizza and a chicken." And I said, "Well, firstly, that is some quite, suitable food there." I said, and secondly, that's not all that's in the fridge. There's loads of stuff in the fridge. And she looked appalled, as all kids do when what's actually in the fridge is ingredients. She said, "There's usually nice things for me and Jamie to just go and eat when we want to." And I was like, "What, graze through the contents of the fridge so you've eaten like most of the ingredients for the Sunday roast and then leave all the empty fucking packets in there because that's what children do." So yeah, she's slightly scarred by the nothing to eat in that. There's shitloads to eat. Well, I imagine if Jamie brings donuts back, we'll just have donuts for the weekend. He would definitely see that as a win. I mean, I am lucky and grateful that my kids are absolutely not fussy eaters at all. And sorry, fussy eaters, that's a bit of a provocative phrase, isn't it? Because I'm not saying fussy is kind of like got negative connotations, and I have lots of friends with kids who don't like to eat lots of stuff, and it's just how they are, and it's nothing that they've done or the kids done. But I am very grateful for having two kids who will eat pretty much fucking anything. One of my favourite, this is another Ocado story, one of my favourite Jamie moments, he was tiny, he must have been about 2, and Ocado did, and maybe still do, because I need to do the caveat in front of this, or you should be like, what the fuck? What is their diet like? They used to do a very cheap version of caviar. Like, I'm not talking the beluga style that costs like £65 for a teaspoon. This was like £2.99 for a little pot. And we'd got quite into it. Me and Mr. I know I need to stop talking. And Jamie had had a bit on toast and had really enjoyed it. So the Ocado rocks up, and the Ocado delivery driver's there, and he gives me all the bags and stuff, and unpacking them and things, and he's standing there getting the receipt for me. And then Jamie said to me in some small toddler voice, and basically inquired what he was going to be having for his tea. And I said, "Well, we've got these lovely things here." And he questioned and said something about, "Well, what about caviar?" And I was like, "Oh shit, no, I forgot to order. There is no caviar, darling." The Ocado man's probably looking at me at this point like, "What a dick. There is no caviar, darling." And Jamie, who never tantrumed, proceeded to absolutely lose his shit in the hallway as the Ocado man stood there. "I want caviar!" And I was like, oh my goodness, I am witnessing the most middle-class tantrum ever. They did have quite middle-class, stereotypical middle-class food tastes, though, my kids. I got them really into quinoa for a while, because I told them both that it was a superfood. It is, quinoa is a superfood. So I was like, "Oh, we're going to have some quinoa tonight because it's a superfood." So that probably then resulted in them both making us look like dicks going into school and going, "I'm going to have quinoa tonight because my mummy says it's a superfood." Oh God, I'm cringing a little bit. I once got an edamame bean stuck to a Bowden catalogue, and I was like, at this moment now, I've hit peak middle class. That's it. That is it. I've completely peaked. They will also try a lot of weird and wonderful things. We went to France a couple of years ago to stay with some family out there, and both kids were offered a snail. Now, I would have been appalled at that age too. I mean, as I alluded to the other week, my fear of slugs kind of extends out to snails. There's a memorable experience that I have years ago. We were in a restaurant in France, me and my mum and my dad and Helen, and my dad ordered snails. And I have never been, so I can remember how frightened I was. Like, these snails came over, and for anybody who's ever had snails in a restaurant, I mean, they do, that you feel like they need to paint their shells or something. They need a little bit of a rebrand, because they do, to all intents and purposes, look like the snails you find out in your back garden. And I crawled my way up there. We were like on one of those sort of booth type things. I crawled my way up the little bench seating to get as far away from my dad as I possibly could. I literally don't know what I thought was going to happen, that one of these snails was going to suddenly come alive and like ricochet itself across the table at me. But I was terrified. By contrast, my kids were out in France, and my aunt was like, "Would anybody like a snail?" They're both like, "Yeah, I'd love a snail." And obviously when you actually, and I have since eaten snails, they're very nice because they basically just taste of garlic butter. And yeah, so they both absolutely wolfed those snails around with no hesitation. But one of my favourite ones was, in line with their I'll eat anything, me and the kids had gone, I think we'd gone up to the Albert Hall to see the proms, and we went to a restaurant beforehand and we were having pizza, and my pizza came with a load of chilies on. And the one thing they're both a little bit funny about is if something's really hot and spicy. And so I'm sat there with these chilies, and Beth went, I think probably just to provoke Jamie, went, "I'll have a chili." And I was like, "Really?" She was like, "Yeah, I'll have a chili." So I said, "All right, you can have a chili if you want." So I gave her one of those slices of chilies, and I was expecting her to like be all well-hard and then end up spitting it out. I mean, no, she's Beth, she's very hardcore. So she literally put this chili in her mouth, chewed it all down, swallowed, opened her mouth, it was gone. I'm like, what the fuck? What's wrong with you? It's mental. So Jamie was then obviously goaded into, well, Beth's eating a chili, I can eat a chili too. I said, "All right, go for it. You're both mad, go for it." So Jamie does the same, opens his mouth, eats his chili. I mean, let's just say that it didn't quite go, I think, as he had hoped it might do. He literally, his face, it was like one of those cartoons where the face gradually goes redder and redder and redder, and then he was like, his tongue's hanging out, and he's like, "I need to go to the toilet." And I was like, "Go for it." So he went to the toilet, obviously spat his chili out, came back. He's like, "My mouth's on fire, Mum, my mouth's on fire." So I ended up having to order him about a pint of milk from this restaurant in order for him to diffuse the chili taste. Meanwhile, Beth's sitting there smugly licking her lips. I could eat some more chilies if I wanted to. I just don't fancy it right now. So yeah, they have very, very eclectic diets. Thankfully, thinking of Jamie out with his mates this afternoon, they are both still appalled by the taste of alcohol. Jamie's had a sip of my champagne before and went, "Oh, what's wrong with you? How can you drink that?" And I had an Aperol Spritz the other weekend, and I brought it into the living room. Beth looked at it and went, "What's that?" And I said, it's alcohol." She went, "Why would you drink that? It looks like fizzy Doritos." So from now on, if ever I'm drinking an Aperol Spritz, that is how I'm going to refer to it, as fizzy Doritos. Sad moment this week, because cats are dicks. And oh my goodness me, my two hit absolutely peak dick moment. And this is a sad story. So if you are overly emotional or sensitive, or just like a nice normal being who enjoys death not happening, then you might want to turn away for this. But for the rest of you, I was working at home on Thursday, I think, this week, and it was just me here, so while I was working, I had my music up really, really, really loud, and to my neighbours, I'm really sorry, I am basically a student at heart, so I had my music really loud. And I thought, it's funny, I can hear something upstairs, so I turned it down to have a listen, and I couldn't really hear anything. So I thought, either I've imagined it, or it was the cat sticking about upstairs. Oh, the cats certainly were dicking up around upstairs in no way that I had hoped ever. So carried on working that day, and then it got to just before doing the score, and I thought, I've seen two of the cats, but I haven't seen ASAP, who's the littlest and the most dickish one of them all. I thought, I haven't seen her. I thought, I wonder, better go and check she's not got locked into a bedroom upstairs. So I went upstairs, and I found her sitting on the end of Beth's bed, looking guilty as hell. And I was like, "What have you done?" She just kind of looked at me in that Bengal way and turned away. Then I went into the kids, they have like a gaming room where their computers are. The little fuckers had killed a fucking baby rabbit, and I know that rabbits are really kind of vermin as well and stuff, and you know, as Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking said to me, they're no cuter than rats, but they look cuter than rats, and they'd killed, the little fucking shits had killed this little baby bunny. And oh, it was all little and cute. Well, it was little and cute until I turned it over to pick it up and realised they'd taken off one of its back legs and eaten out its innards and pulled off its tail, at which point it became slightly less cute. So there's me picking up this destroyed rabbit to take it downstairs. I said to Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking. He said, it was so sad. I said a little prayer. He said, "Did you sing Bright Eyes?" I said, "I thought about it. Bright Eyes." He said, "Then what did you do with that?" I said, "Then I went and chucked it in the wheelie bin." He said, "Is that what you're going to do with me when I'm dead?" I said, "Well, well, there is a possibility, save on the funeral fees. But yeah, little shits, little fucking furry shits. They're absolute little assholes. So I was most unimpressed with all of my cats this week. Well, not Sandwich. Sandwich is a very good girl. But the other two, Brexit and ASAP, little fucking shit. So God knows what they're going to bring me back next. I keep hearing tales. In fact, I think Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking's family cat, when Mr. I Need to Stop Talking was young, once rocked up home with somebody's roast. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine the shame of having to take that roast back? Or would you just, maybe you wouldn't, maybe you just hide it and pretend you'd never seen it. But oh my God, the shame. That'll be my cats. Fuck knows what they'll bring back next. Jamie once went to me, he went, God, next thing they bring to the cat flap will probably be another cat. I mean, please no. They, absolute little fucking furry shit. It's a good job we love them, isn't it? Anyway, I'm off to watch Wales play some football. Hopefully be more successful than England will be on Tuesday. And I might even, it's a Saturday afternoon, might even treat myself to a glass of fizzy Doritos, although maybe I'll wait until I've finished doing my helicopter parenting and stalking Jamie on his tracking device to find out just how many different types of donuts he will have eaten this afternoon. Teenage rebellion. All the donuts you could possibly eat. I hope everybody's okay. I hope everybody's keeping safe. I hope you're either enjoying the football or staying well clear of it, whatever is your preference. Have lovely weeks. Look after yourselves. I will see you next week. Take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye.